Today's Japanese slang term is shikoi, which means that something makes you horny and want to jerk off. Yeah, I know, but this is not utsukushi nihongo no setsumekai. This is ryukogo setsumekai. The words exist in the wild, I go out, find them, and explain them, and some of them happen to be, words like this. Anyway, shikoi comes from the onomatopoeia shiko shiko, which has a number of meanings, but one of them is that it is supposed to evoke the sound of, well, you know how to read. This link has created a number of words. Shikoru, for instance, is a verb meaning to jerk off, and I'm using that specific phrase because I want to emphasize that this is not like a synonym for just masturbate. This is very much associated with men and also has that kind of vulgar, unpleasant feel. It's not a word that you should use in polite conversation at the doctor's office, etc. But basically, shikoi is the adjectival form of that and is used when you find something sexy, but again, in a very, very vulgar way. So in uses like this one, or this one, or this one. While I've censored the images, you can guess what they kind of look like. Generally speaking, the vibe of things that are called shikoi is things that are blatantly sexual. Like there are posts like this, or this, where it kind of just functions as a synonym for sexy, but in most cases when something is shikoi, the difference between that and sekushi is that the shikoi thing is erotic in an extremely obvious and blatant way, rather than something just being attractive. For instance, in looking up data for this video, I found this account called Kono Manga ga Shikoi, which honestly is kind of clever. If you're not familiar, Kono Manga ga Sugoi is one of the top-rated, best well-known manga recommendation sites. So in this case, they're recommending erotic manga, and the pictures they post are not 18+. Like I'm not going to, but I could show them here without getting flagged for adult content, but they're about as close to that border as you can get. That said though, while shikoi's primary use is by men saying that this picture makes me horny, there are other uses out there, and some of which derive from shikoi itself, and others actually go back to the shiko shiko onomatopoeia I mentioned earlier. Most directly related to this male use is actually the use of this word by fujoshi. Now, indeed, there is no question that fujoshi, or female BL fans, are big fans of the word shikoi, at least to some extent, as there are many, many posts that I've seen flashing above my head right now, talking about fujoshi using shikoi specifically. Now, I've seen explanations online saying that in this use by fujoshi, shikoi only means like kawaii and there's no sexual element there. Personally, I think that's a bit of a stretch and perhaps based in a traditional understanding of what women do or don't do. However, explanations like this where it says in addition to the sexual meaning, there is a feel of kawaii or kirei, pretty cute added on, as in looking at uses of shikoi by fujoshi online, you can see that the types of images that are being shown are much less pornographic in, I guess, let's say the traditional sense. This isn't to say that there aren't pictures of like men without their shirts and stuff like that, but generally speaking, genitals aren't bulging out of clothing, leaving very little to the imagination, and there are plenty of pictures like this where there's nothing inherently pornographic. That again doesn't mean that the use of shikoi here is not one that says this makes me horny, but at least the images that are being associated with this are much more just men who are kind of pretty and cute and maybe sexy for that reason, rather than men who are like Magic Mike style or, just about to engage in a pornographic act. Indeed, there are even cases I found of men calling themselves shikoi, which are not pornographic, but definitely have vibes that you would associate with kind of BL. Beyond that though, shikoi has just seen use to mean good. I can't find an explanation of kind of when this use began, but my theory is that the thing here excites you in a way that is similar to how you get excited in a sexual manner. But ultimately there's nothing sexual going on, you're just really like it. For instance, this guitar here is described as shikoi, and this is not like a guitar fetishist, they just like the old guitar. This person here is using shikoi just to say that they're extremely excited about a, very cool alternate art Pokemon drop. And this person does not have any sexual interest in tool storage, they just think that the dark green gold combination here looks really, really great. Before you go, oh, that's so weird, perhaps think of this as analogous to the use of porn in English. For instance, food porn, earth porn, etc., just to describe something that excites and interests you, referencing the way that pornography often excites and interests people. So the earlier guitar, we could call that like guitar porn. The earlier Pokemon, we could call that let's actually end the thought experiment there, but you get where I'm going. Finally, there's at least one more use of shikoi out there, and I found that while trying to figure out how long this term has been in use. Google Trends shows that shikoi in general has been used since at least 2014, and I can find uses on Twitter going back to 2010 that are obviously in the sexy kind of use that I mentioned earlier. Indeed, the tweet you're seeing is someone trying to figure out if something is eroi or shikoi. But in going back to 2010, I also found uses like this, where someone says shikoi means a hardworking person. And I thought, okay, is this like a joke? Are you attracted to hardworking people? But as I kept searching, I found more and more uses in this ilk. Here, for instance, is the phrase benkyou ni shikoi, and Google Translate puts that as someone who is serious about studying, and in context, that kinda matches. Indeed, in this post here, you can see someone talking about an impression that people who are studying are shikoi. Google translates it as shy, which I don't agree with, but minimally the idea is that someone studying is shikoi. That link is there again. I guess this means that I'm a bit shikoi because I really wanted to study and figure out what was going on here, and eventually I did find someone just kind of breaking it down. In this tweet here in 2012, you can see the person noting that shikoi here comes from shiko shiko benkyou shiteru, and that goes all the way back to our earlier onomatopoeia, as shiko shiko does have the meaning of slow and steady, and in posts like this you can see someone breaking down that shiko shiko benkyou shiteru is actually a phrase that is used in Japanese to mean studying diligently. From what I can tell in 2024, this use of shikoi is kinda dead. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I had trouble finding any, and I'm guessing it's because, well, the other one is pretty popular and well known, so if you say like, benkyou shiteru hito wa shikoi, it's very easy to get misinterpreted. Indeed, there may have even been other uses of shikoi out there, such as this person here, who mentions shikoi is used to refer to men who approach women, so kind of inverting the normal trend, perhaps as a shortening of shitsukoi, I'm not sure. This might have been the only person who had this interpretation, but at least there were a few shikoi floating around there before the one I introduced this video with took off as the main one. That said, there are at least 3 that still exist, and maybe that benkyou one still is out there somewhere, so do be careful. Generally speaking, you're gonna have to rely on context to know which shikoi is which. For instance, like in a post like this where someone says that udon is shikoi, they're clearly referring to the good meaning, right? Like the food porn meaning, right? It has to be that. It can't be the other one, right? Right?